My name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, we're going to do a little follow-up with our Palantir conversation from the other day, because there's just additional information that has been kind of floating around recently that has sparked some additional ideas that have been kind of plaguing my mind for quite a while. So, again, we talked about Palantir. And more importantly, we talked about Elon Musk and Doge, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. Now, Doge was originally titled something else. It was a Department of Information Technology Efficiency, something like that, right? It was a different name for that governmental department that Elon Musk became the head of for those, 90 days or 100 days that he was a special government employee, right? Now, I thought it was very strange that when he first came into that position, the very first thing that they did was change the name of that government agency to Doge. Now, some of you have probably heard of the cryptocurrency called Doge. Now, that's really what caught my eye, because if you remember back during the lockdowns, right, cryptocurrency was going gangbusters, right? It was huge. Cryptocurrency was in the news constantly. It was just that so much money was being put into it. And I think what happened is we were all getting those stimulus checks, right? We were locked into our houses. No one had any place to go, no place to spend the money. And cryptocurrency was this, get rich quick scheme, and people were taking these government checks, these stimulus checks or whatever that were being sent to them, and they were putting it right into cryptocurrency. And I remember watching that and thinking, wow, this is pretty fascinating to see what's going on here. And if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Elon Musk was constantly talking about a cryptocurrency called Doge. And that's the one that has a little dog as the logo, a Shiba Inu dog. So the two cryptos that I do want to make mention of, and again, this is not financial advice. Do not take any of this as financial advice, okay? This is just me putting two and two together, right? So we have the Doge cryptocurrency, and then we also have one called Shiba Inu, right? So as a disclosure, I don't own any Doge, but I do own 41 million Shiba Inu. Okay, so I bought that for about $200 at the time. Okay, so it sounds like a lot, but it really has very little value at this point. But, for such a long time, I've kind of realized that the dollar as we know it today can't last for that much longer. Okay, so about 20 years ago, when I was working for a credit union, the Marine Corps credit union, I worked as a database specialist, right? I was working with the credit union's database, this massive machine, had tons of servers connected to it with this giant database that held all of the, credit union members' financial information. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, as I would go through the databases and watch money get transferred from one place to the next, I realized that there is really two different types of dollars out there, right? So one of my jobs was when the Marines would get paid. Okay, so when each individual Marine was actually being paid their salary, that money came directly from the Federal Reserve. Okay, that I thought was very interesting. And this is newly minted, newly created kind of actual money. And I would have to log into the Federal Reserve's website through multiple layers of security and things like that. And I would download these massive files that contained tens of millions of dollars that were the salaries that once that money was transferred from the Federal Reserve to the credit union that I worked for, I would then run a command that would disperse all of that money into the accounts of all the Marines and their families. And now, again, that sort of felt like real money because it was coming directly from the Federal Reserve. But so much of the database, when I would look at it, I would say, this just seems like fake money. It's just numbers. When you used to look at a dollar bill, right, a physical dollar bill, if you can even find one anymore, it had a serial number on it. And each dollar bill had its own serial number. So we knew that was, its own individual dollar. It was a real dollar. It came from somewhere versus kind of what we see in the banking, industry where it's like, if you deposit money into the bank, they can then take that money and loan it out to other people as long as they have 10% of that loan covered. I think it's something like that. So again, if you were getting $1 million loan, the bank would only have to have $100,000 in assets. So all of a sudden, $900,000 was made up out of nowhere. So I kept thinking to myself, this can't last forever, right? This constant just fake creation of money, just the swelling of money out of nowhere. And so then we start hearing things more about cryptocurrency and the blockchain. And again, I don't understand all of it. Again, it's not financial advice, but from what I started to understand is that these digital dollars basically have their own serial numbers in a way, and they have their own ledger. So each crypto coin or token has a receipt that it carries with it saying, here's where I've been, right? So you can kind of see where the money's been, and that way you can tell if it's been tampered with or whatever, right? It's very complicated, but I think it is a new form of money and ultimately better than our current digital money, because the fact is we have digital money today. You're not carrying around a bunch of bills and coins in your pocket anymore. You might have some, but that's not where the majority of your financial wealth is. It's not in your wallet anymore, right? It's on your credit card, your debit card, in your banking account. You're transferring it back and forth with the different apps and stuff like that, right? So, for the last couple of years, even before Elon Musk renamed the government agency to Doge, I've been throwing comments out on the internet saying that I believe that in the future that the cryptocurrency Doge is going to replace the dollar and that Shiba Inu is going to replace the penny. Now, I know that sounds silly and it may not happen, but something has to replace those two currencies, right? Because right now, the penny has no value whatsoever. And the dollar is quickly becoming the new penny. In fact, I wrote an article about this almost 20 years ago entitled, I Found an Amero in My Pocket. Okay, so around this time, the European Union was coming out with the euro, right? This currency that instead of each country over in Europe having its own currency, they would create a euro, and now they all had the same dollar, right? And so I thought to myself, I wonder if America's going to do this because, back then we were hearing about the European Union, and when George Bush Jr. was president, we heard a lot about the North American Union, this idea that Canada, Mexico, and America were going to become one, right? Again, with this new currency called the Amero. And back then, they announced these dollar gold coins. And you may see these still in circulation today. I don't think they printed a bunch of them, but every year they were printing these gold dollar coins that had a different president on it, right? And when you looked at that coin, nowhere on it did it say the word dollar. It had a dollar sign and a 1 next to it, but nowhere did it say dollar. And I thought, this is the Amero. This is the new currency that they're going to start sharing with us, because it doesn't say dollar. I don't even think it really said anything about the United States. Maybe it did, but I thought, oh, they could do this in each of the countries. They could have their own presidents on it. They don't have to, name the currency on there. It can be more ubiquitous, right? So I thought, okay, is that what they're going to do? And that all kind of fell apart. But the reason that I wrote that article was really to focus on the value of the dollar versus the penny. Because again, think about this. Back in the early, say 1920s, right? If you had a handful of pennies, there was value in that. 2 or 3 pennies put together could buy you a sandwich. Nowadays, you have a handful of pennies and it's completely worthless, right? You're lucky if you filled both hands up, you would have $2. Maybe you could get a candy bar for that right now. If you lost a handful of pennies in the couch, you wouldn't even take the time to dig it out, right? But if currency was revalued and those pennies now had the value of today's dollar, you would go into the couch and you would get every one of those pennies out. And I think that's what happened. President Trump just announced we're not going to be making pennies anymore. And I think what we're doing is replacing the penny with a dollar. The dollar will soon become the lowest value of currency, right? And it will, really, we kind of just need to move the decimal place over a little bit and get some value to our money back. But, all of this was kind of swirling around in my mind. And then I read the other day that Amazon and Walmart are going to start using their own stable coins, okay? Or that they're looking into it. So now what is a stable coin? I know everything that I'm saying. I'm all over the map here. And that's why we're just kind of dumping it all out. We're going to see where this goes in the future, because I think something is coming, a drastic change to currency, right? So Amazon and Walmart are going to do these stable coins. And now what is that going to mean to us? So I think it's a lot like when we play video games, right? So if you're playing, Call of Duty, if you're playing Fortnite, any of these type of games where you can purchase digital items within the game, okay? New skins for your characters, new skins for their weapons, new vehicles, whatever it might be. You're purchasing a digital asset within the game. Now, you cannot purchase those things with dollars. You cannot go into Fortnite, Call of Duty, any of these games and say, here's $1, I want that skin. What you have to do is you have to purchase a coin within the game, right? So you might say, okay, for $20, I'm going to get, 1,000 COD bucks, Call of Duty bucks, or I'm going to get 1,000, Minecraft dollars or Fortnite coins or gems or whatever it might be. And then you use the gems and the coins or whatever they are in order to purchase these digital items, right? I think Amazon and Walmart are going to be doing the same thing. Soon, I think when you go onto the Amazon app, you're not going to be able to use your dollars to purchase your items anymore. You're going to have to purchase Amazon coins, okay? Same with Walmart. You're going to have to purchase Walmart coins first. And then they're just going to sit there in your account. You don't have to spend them right away. You can save them for later and purchase other items with them. But they'll be in there almost as if Amazon and Walmart are now banks. And I think that's the biggest purpose behind this kind of shift, right? So if you have to, say, spend $1,000 at Amazon, you put the $1,000 in there, it sits there for a couple of weeks before you make your purchase or whatever. Guess what? Amazon's not going to just let that money sit there. They're going to reinvest it on their own and be making interest and stuff off of it. But you're also going to be trapped within the Amazon app now, because my guess is they're going to make it very difficult to, change those Amazon and Walmart coins back into $1. Okay. Now, again, are they going to be allowed to just create these coins on their own, or do they have to use some type of system that's already created, like a Doge cryptocurrency that could be used for the dollar, or the Shiba Inu cryptocurrency that could be used for the penny? I'm not sure, but we could be going there. I thought that was kind of, I've been seeing more and more about this. I feel a major change coming on with our currency. I don't know when it's going to happen, but just be on the lookout. And again, the reason that we talk about it, just like we talked about with Palantir, folks, remember, I finished that talk up with, forget all of your feelings that you have for this company, make your money, right? Fuck your principles, I think is exactly what I said. I'm telling you, every conspiracy podcast out there right now is talking about Palantir. And I was listening to one the other day, Last American Vagabond, and I think the guy's name's Ryan. He had a guest on, and they were specifically talking about Palantir. And folks, over and over and over again, they kept saying, my principles, my principles, my principles. Cool, guys. Great. Talk about Palantir, talk about how scary they are, talk about how bad they are. Never once did either of those guys say, but you might be scared of Palantir because it's a big brother software that's going to create this kind of digital prison that we're all in. But it's also a great thing to invest in because it was $10 a share and now it's well over $100 a share. Never did they talk about that stuff. And again, we have to be on the lookout for these type of opportunities. Is Doge and Shiba Inu one of these, opportunities? I don't know. Again, not financial advice. Do not go out and spend a bunch of money on Doge and Shiba Inu. That's crazy. But, there just seems to be something in the air. We seem like we're going to be getting to a major shift because of that drop in the value of the dollar. Again, the penny used to be worth something. You would dig around in the couch to get your pennies out. Today, you throw them in the trash, you don't even care. But they used to have value. And soon the dollar is going to be that way too. It's going to be so valueless, you're not going to care about it. And we're going to have to transition to something else. And my guess is it's going to be one of these cryptocurrencies. And they're going to be very powerful, right? When I worked at the credit union, one of the servers that I ran was the credit and debit card server, okay? So when a debit card or credit card transaction would come in, I could watch the transaction occur in all the different steps: verification, security, how much money do you have in your account? How much money are you requesting? Is the account authorized? Is it verified? All of these type of things were happening. And one of the things that I noticed is that when you look at the database and you look at the individual transaction, they would be labeled with a specific moniker, right? Saying, here's where the money was spent. And you would have these different codes, and it would be things like grocery store, liquor store, pharmacy, pet store, toy store, gardening and home improvement. And there was all of these categories for the different stores, gas stations, restaurants, all of that stuff. And I thought to myself, even back then, this was 20 years ago, and I go, man, someday when they have some type of digital currency that they have more control over, they're going to be able to stop us from making purchases at specific locations. Okay? If you, let's say in the future, if you got a DUI, right? You drink too much and you go driving and you get arrested. I think in the future, they're going, and they could, I guarantee they can do this today, but it will be even more micromanaged in the future. They could stop you from making purchases at liquor stores by saying, when a transaction comes in from the code that equals the liquor store, deny it. Decline that transaction for this customer when they try to buy alcohol from a liquor store because of prior DUIs, right? I think that's where we're going to go, right? So that's for the alcoholics. All you fatties out there, sorry, but guess what? It's also going to be tied to our caloric intake. They are going to use calculations to say, this is your age, this is your height, you're male, you're female, whatever it is. And they're going to have calculations for each one of us saying how many calories are required each day for us to maintain healthy weight. And when you go and make your purchases, if you start purchasing above your calorie count, they could either stop you from making those purchases outright, or they could increase the price of those items. I think that's what they're going to do for food. So they're going to say for the first 3,000 calories of food, it's at a base price. But if you want to be a fatty and you want to keep eating over your 3,000 calories, now the price goes up, right? They're going to increase it for every, say, 100 calories you eat over your allotted amount for the day, the price is going to go up, and it's going to happen automatically. So the milkshake that you get from McDonald's is going to cost different for the person who's under their 3,000 calories versus the person who's well over it, right? Again, I'm throwing all kinds of stuff out here because this is how I think. This is how I was taught to think of what the future technology is going to be and how it's going to integrate into our current systems, right? And that's all I'm trying to share with you here. Some people, when they use this same technique of thinking with other subjects, they're called prophets, right? Oh, this person's prophesizing the future and da-da-da-da-da. People have kind of told me that in the past. Oh, you talked about this thing 15 years ago and it's happening today. You're like a prophet. Nope. All I did was research the technology and understand what was coming. I introduced thumbprint biometric scanners to the credit union 20 years before it was available, and now it's on every phone, right? So again, it's not prophecy. It's not, seeing visions of the future that were sent from God or whatever, right? It's nothing like that. It's simply learning the technology and thinking logically where this is going to go in the future. That's just about technology. You can apply that same mindset and that same way of thinking to whatever subject it is that you're working with. So I know this was a little strange. Again, totally off topic from our series on magic here, but I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a fun follow-up from our Palantir conversation the other day. I hope you enjoyed that part. And when this type of stuff pops up, I'll try to mention it more and more, but hopefully we'll be able to stay focused for the rest of this series on what's going on. And when we return, we'll get back into our reading from the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl in just a moment. All right, welcome back, folks. We're going to pick up where we left off in the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. And we are on page 40. And let's see. Okay, we left off here. It says, until now, we have explained merely a cross-section of the history of magic. We have presented a morphology of magic and would have to describe her historical development. But a history of magic cannot be written in the same manner as, for example, a history of physical science. Our knowledge of the old peoples and the exotic is insufficient to establish a biogenesis of its darkest, most cryptic, and more or less secret beliefs and activities. Magic, the way that our ancestors taught it, was it written down? Hopefully. Were all of those books burned? Probably. If there are books that talk about, ancient belief systems, ancient practices, many of them are probably hidden in places like the Vatican. I hear they have a massive library of books from around the world that have never been read. That should be a crime. I think the world population, humanity, should knock on the Vatican's door, say, we demand all of those books. They are all going to be scanned. Each individual page, they're going to be placed on the internet for free. We're going to have AI read them, change them into all the different languages, and we're going to give all of that information out for free. That's what should happen with all info, in my opinion, right? Any type of knowledge that you can share with someone else to improve themselves, improve humanity, improve the world, of course, and especially when it comes to our history. But that's not the world we live in today, right? We live in an occult world. We live in a hidden world full of secrets, right? Secret societies that feel like they have to hoard things. And I'm telling you, if you don't think the Vatican and Catholicism is a secret society, just the same as any of these other large organizations, they all are. The people at the top have different agendas than that they share with the people at the bottom. They withhold certain knowledge in order to maintain their power, and it's sad. And it's what we fight against here in the Mind War. We do everything that we can to share this information with all of you. Whenever we encounter a people, we find that they possess magic systems and practices. But we are often unable to ascertain how these systems emerged, where we could speak of influence or even what justifiably should be set as earlier or later. We can only speak of the old or of the exotic and have to treat a millennia as if it were a day. On the other side of magic, by its nature, resists the use of concepts of development since it rests too much on the intuitive knowledge and autogenic power. One of the difficulties of magic and trying to look at it in a scientific way, the way that Bob Monroe did when he created the Gateway Experience tapes, it's ethereal. It's hard to grasp. You can't pin it down. It's not a feeling that you can perfectly describe for the next person, but we're getting closer. I feel like the work that we do here in the Mind War, while we try to take a scientific look at magic, the same way that Bob Monroe and so many others have done, I think we're getting closer. I think we can start to describe these things. I think we can start to put together a list of do these few simple things, and this is what magic is. This is what the ancients were practicing, right? Because what I have found, when you, again, low dose THC and psilocybin, the Gateway Experience tapes, using the hypnotic music, breathing techniques along with Kundalini, you're using the stare to look into the crystal ball or the black mirror. That's when you pull your tarot cards. That's when you do your manifestation. The feelings that you have during that are repeatable. Over and over and over again, you can have that same feeling. Now, the question is the work that you're doing having true effects? Is something really happening? That's where it's still very difficult to measure. In my life, I feel like it has. I feel like the magical practice that I've been doing over the last 3.5 years has had major transformative effects in my life, right? And again, is it the magic doing it? Or is it simply self-help? I think it's a combination of both, right? Self-help has put me in a mindset and in an attitude where I can accept these changes into my life. I'm no longer fighting against it. My ego is no longer saying no. My ego is no longer saying, no, you want this instead of that. I've now begun to just accept these changes, accept these gifts that are coming into my life. And I've started to realize this is what I really needed. Not the things I thought I needed. You know, same thing as everybody else. Money, fame, whatever it might be, right? When you get past those things, because when you start your magical journey, you may ask for them and you're going to get them. And you're going to get them in a very gray version. It's the monkey paw version. You're not going to get exactly what you wanted. And I think you'll quickly realize, okay, it's time for me to stop doing magic where I'm trying to demand things, where I'm trying to force things to happen. And you're going to take a more casual view of it. And you're going to say, give me what you got. You know what is best for me. The universe, the absolute, the cosmic dynamic force, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever you call it in your mind, you know that they want what is best for you. And they'll give it to you, whatever it is, right? But again, you have to get over that idea of, oh, this is what I want. Instead, allow things to happen. Arguably, great magicians are replaced by mediocre ones. That's me. I am the mediocre magician, folks, okay? But right now, that might be the best that you got. Because, I mean, there might be a few other magicians out there who are trying to share their story, right? And there are some out there that are really great, right? Magister Klaus is one of them on YouTube. I've talked about him before. There are others out there. But I don't even know if most of the people out there who call themselves magicians would be even considered mediocre at this point, right? It says, arguably great magicians are replaced by mediocre ones, and times where magic dominates and penetrates all life are replaced by times where magic recedes. But true progress in our rationalistic sense can be demonstrated somehow. So it's interesting how magic recedes and then comes back, ebb and flow, right? Obviously, over the last 2,000 years of the dark ages of Christianity, right, magic had to recede. It had to go into these secret societies. But now it's time for it to flow again, ebb and flow. We're going to bring magic back to the surface. It's what we do here in the Mind War. It would instead be possible only to speak of a constant regression. Almost everywhere we find magic forms, we also find ossification and corrosion of these forms. It almost seems to be as if humanity in earlier times was in possession of all magical abilities, and since then has only slumped from the height. I would compare that with food. Food from the past was probably amazing in so many ways, right? Fresh, organic, delicious, basic. And now our food has just fallen off into this weird poisonous trash. I heard the other day something like 60% of the material that makes up processed food is just fillers. 60% of what you put in your mouth is just called a filler. It's just something that has no nutritional value but makes you feel full. That's disgusting, man. That's what we're talking about. That's what the author is talking about with magic. It's become empty calories, and we see it. Again, if you're going on TikTok to find some lady who's pulling 900 tarot cards every live stream thinking that she's doing something for you, that's empty calories, man. You have to do this work yourself. And we'll get into tarot cards more, but again, I don't think you can just sit there and pull 10 tarot cards every day and expect, for them to have any value or worth. And I'll share more about how you get down to two tarot cards a month, and all of a sudden they have a lot of fucking meaning, okay? They become very powerful. It's sometimes you got to put a governor on these things, and it becomes something special, right? It says here, how man was able to reach this high standard is completely unknown to us. And now this following part is again another highlighted section that Adolf Hitler highlighted. And it says this: in any case, all theories which speak of constant progress of world affairs fail here. It isn't entirely coincidental that the old religious systems of better times held the view that man does not reach salvation by progress, but by a conversation or a conversion. My apologies. So they say it's not about progress, but conversion. In a way, you have to have both. You can't just show up at a church for the first time, get dunked in the water, say some silly words, and then now you are converted into some beautiful, enlightened being. That's no different than going to your weekend Reiki session. I went for a 3-day Reiki session in the woods, and now I'm healed of all my issues. No, you're not. I've had so many people come to me with these same things. Oh, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that for this little seminar, or I'm going to go to the Monroe Institute for a week and I'm going to learn how to do the tapes. No, you're not. No, you're not. That's not how this works. It takes progression. As you progress, step by step, changing your aristos, tiny little changes, and then all of a sudden, the conversion occurs. I was just speaking about this with a friend earlier. How I became a magician. I didn't become a magician until about 2.5 years into the work. Maybe even longer. And I'm going to tell that story in future episodes. How I officially became a magician. Right? And you'll see the steps that it took to get there. And these aren't steps that we can write down and I can have you follow the same thing, right? Mine was in its own form. Yours will come in its own form. But it's progress that leads to a conversion, to the final, right? The straw that changes you, right? Not the straw that breaks the camel's back or the final nail in the coffin or whatever, but it's that final piece that puts the puzzle together, and now you are converted, right? It says, therefore, we can demonstrate clearly only the history of the degeneration of magic. Well, that's sad. It's sad to think that in 2025, the author here is saying that the only way that we can really historically look at magic is by its dissolving, its degeneration, its decay, its corrosion, right? Of course, that's important to learn. But my hope is that now we are just like the phoenix. Magic, as of, say, the last few decades, was a pile of ash. The phoenix had risen, it burned itself up, and now it's just a pile of ash. But in that ash of magic, that egg is growing, and that's what we're doing here. We are still at the earliest stages of the Aquarian Enlightenment, the age of Aquarius. We are it. We are the fetal magicians, right? And we're coming out here every day, and we put ourselves on the line for this. Again, I've said this before. There's no going back from what I'm doing here. I can't go back to just be a normal person. I can't go back and just, I'm a Christian again, or whatever it is. Whatever, right? There is no going back. And we put ourselves on the line to share this information for you, to see that phoenix of magic rise again. We can build something strong here. We keep hearing about this new golden era, this new golden age that we're coming into. You think that's going to happen with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam? You think they're going to bring about the golden age? They had thousands of years. And look at where the planet ended up. We're still in the same battles that we were thousands of years ago, right? And we need to move past them. Only when we move past all that stuff can we start focusing on something different. Consciously, collectively focusing on healing the planet, healing from these old fairy tales that are so destructive. And it's sickening to watch today. More than ever in politics. It literally feels like right after 9/11 again, where it was, Christian nationalism coming back up, and we got to support our friends in the Middle East and all this bullshit, and we're commanded to do it by God. It's sick listening to this just garbage right now. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate hearing our politicians out there constantly talking about the Bible. What is going on? Burn that book and let's move forward. This degeneration coincides with the gradual crystallization of the worldview and attitude, which we call European in the widest sense. We not only mean a world sentiment which would only appear inside of Europe in its geographic or even racial meaning, but structurally, psychologically, the form of human existence that may have reached its climax in today's Europe. And again, he's writing this in the 1800s. The more a people converge to this European state, the more its magical capability wanes and conceals its magical forms of expression. But with this, the ground is cut from under the whole religious life, and it degenerates into bloodless abstract theorems and atheistic tendencies. So again, he's talking about the West overall, moving away from magic, moving more towards the state, moving more towards science, which I don't mind science. Again, I think science is a form of magic. I think if there is a God out there, right, an old guy with a beard who's designing all this stuff, I believe he gave magic to us as a tool, or science to us as a tool in order to figure out life. And in that science is magic. Because every time a scientist comes up with an answer and says, we figured it out, another scientist comes behind him and says, well, wait a minute, what about this thing here that we can't explain? That's the magic. And it's only magical until it gets discovered and they figure it out, and then they move on to the next magical thing, right? On top of that, on top of moving towards the state, politics, right? On top of focusing strictly on science and how all of those things have been corrupted, then we place on top of all of it the monotheistic religion that just weighs everybody down. That's the final crushing blow of what the author is talking about here, of this old world magic that all of humanity used to practice. Remember, he says that magic used to be a fundamental part of our daily lives. Now it's not. Not true magic, right? But we're going to get back to that. This next chapter, again, another chapter highlighted by Adolf Hitler, it says this. Let's see. The Europeans, and with them the late type of man, is in general characterized by his lack of feeling for the concrete, corporeal. He does not experience the physical world as something intrinsic and substantial, and he therefore lacks every sense for the deeper meaning of the gestalt-like, the actual. It is always said that the European has a pronounced sense of reality and sense of fact. But closer inspection reveals that he always looks past reality and the facts, and what he holds in his hands are empty schemes. The whole materialism and rationalism of our time virtually strikes in the face every deeper sense of reality and facts. If we don't live in that world today, I don't know what to tell you. We live in a world where everybody thinks they know everything because we have that device in our hands which shows us everything. It shows us what it's like to jump out of an airplane or eat a specific type of food in a different country, or, hike up a specific mountain or whatever. We feel like we've done it. Our mind is, it fools us into thinking that we've accomplished those things because we've watched them. It fools our mind into thinking we know everything about what it's like to hike to the top of that mountain, but we don't. You don't know the pain that's going to occur as you hike up that mountain, as you freeze to the very, as you're walking to the very tip of this frozen giant mountain, right? You don't know what it feels like just because you watched it. And that's what we're talking about here, is getting away from the physical, getting away from reality, and just thinking that we know what's going on. And that's what they're doing in every church, right? Remember, every Sunday, they go in and they talk about these magical experiences that men had thousands of years ago. But they tell you can't have that experience today, that if you even try, it's evil. It's just not true. The friend that I was speaking with today, I told them this. I said, I know that you are a believer. And I know that we tried to believe together in the past. And I told them, here's the deal. I'm doing everything that the Bible tells us not to do. I'm doing all of those things that it says are evil. And I feel better than I have in years. I feel infinitely more secure in myself, more confident in myself and my beliefs than I did at any time when I tried to be a Christian. And I tried, folks. I tried so fucking hard. I read the Bible cover to cover. I visited my friend Joey, aka Daog, from the 12 Tribes cult. I visited him over and over and over again and got so close to joining. I wanted to believe. I joined the Church of Religious Science, thinking that maybe kind of a watered down version of Christianity would work for me. Of course it didn't. I tried to believe. But it didn't sit right. There was always something wrong. There was always something off about it. So I said, wait a minute. If this book that tells us X, Y, and Z are bad and to stay away from it, maybe I should try those things, right? And again, I've told you what I've tried. The worst thing that I'm doing right now, I guess, would be maybe the magic mushrooms. Is that the scariest? Is that the baddest thing that I do? Maybe. Pricking my finger with a needle and drawing a little drop of blood. Is that the scariest, worst thing that I do? I guess so, right? Again, we're not out there human sacrificing, doing all that kind of stuff. That's nonsense, right? But when we took that look and said, what are they saying is evil? And there's a band called Slayer, and one of their lyrics says, why is it that evil is what you're attracted to? All of those things that they've called evil, I've always been attracted to it. What is it? What are they hiding? What's so scary behind it? Now, again, there is no fear here in the mind war, but when you do this work, you're going to scare the pants off yourself. I have been in scary situations doing this work. I have seen things and felt things that are frightening, but it was good. It felt good. It felt exciting. Finally, an experience. Finally, something. It's worth it. It's worth looking into the darkness. It's worth looking into the abyss. There may be some fear. You may be frightened for a moment, but man, the answers that lie on the other side are so worth the journey. It says, but magic in the proper sense is something concrete and therefore irrational and anti-materialistic. It works with the blood and soul of the things, images, figures, and everything which is called body is a source and reservoir of power. Nothing is more disastrous for a magician than abstract thoughts, which slide into his quite plastic imagination during the exercise of his art, and nothing weakens the magician as much as when his brain momentarily runs dry and loses contact with the physical world. This is your preparation process from the Gateway Experience tapes when you take all of your worries, all of your concerns, and you place them into your energy conversion box. That's what the author is talking about right now. When you are listening to the Gateway Experience tapes and then going on and doing your magical practice, doing your work, right? You cannot let your mind run wild. I've talked to you about this when it comes to the tape 1 year patterning. Do not go into that tape 1 year patterning without very clear goals that you're going to be focused on. Do not allow your mind to run wild with all sorts of sad, depressed, angry thoughts. All of your worries from the day before or worries from work or whatever it may be. You bring those things in to your 1 year patterning session, and guess what you're going to get next year? Depression and anger and sadness and troubles at work and all that type of stuff. You have to go into it focused, right? You cannot allow abstract thoughts to slide into your plastic imagination during the exercise of your art. And again, he calls it art. This is what it is. We are artists. The next couple sentences here, again highlighted by Adolf Hitler. Let's see what he was so interested in. It says, the European type of man is solely attuned to this running dry of the brain, and therefore he is not able to grasp the fullness of reality anymore. What I don't clearly and distinctly recognize is not, says Descartes, and this shapes the fundamental principle of European rationalism. What I don't clearly and distinctly recognize is not. If that's your mindset, where if you cannot clearly lock something down, if you cannot, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, if you live in such a rigid world, in such a rigid state of mind, you're never going to be opened to what magic has for you, what it can offer you, right? We've talked about this a lot. You have to be able to overcome those societal, cultural, and religious wet blankets. You have to take them off and say, I'm going to open my mind to new ideas and new ways of thinking. Maybe they don't work for you. Maybe it's not something that you hold on to forever, but you have to open your mind. You have to allow yourself to say, I can think in a different way. I can view things in a different way than instead of constantly viewing everything through the lens of religion or politics or whatever it is. You got to get away from it. You're better than that. You're stronger than that. I know you are. But especially the deepest things are those which we are not able to clearly and distinctly recognize. And even if we could, still nothing would be done for the magical side of our being, since recognizing in the rationalistic sense is always a fake and shallow understanding of the actuality, and is consequently more dissolving of the contact with forces of the deep than creating it. A lot of people out there recognizing a lot of interesting stuff right now in the world. A lot of people are starting to recognize that the organizations, corporations, and institutions that have ruled our life are polluting our minds, poisoning our bodies, and corrupting our souls. A lot of people out there are starting to recognize that, oh, this is how we've always done it. They're starting to recognize that just because this is how we've always done it doesn't make it the right way to do it. Okay? You're seeing that in your own life right now. And we're moving past those things. We're opening up our thoughts, allowing new thoughts, allowing new synapses to be created in our brain. We're taking down those barriers that stop us from accepting new information into our lives. And we're gaining knowledge wherever it comes from. And we're going to get deeper into this idea as we continue through my magical journey over on my Instagram account at The Occult Technician in just a moment. Welcome back, folks. We are going to pick up where we left off on my magical journey over on Instagram at The Occult Technician. You can go to my account. You're going to scroll all the way down to a post. Again, this was dated June 20th, 2022. There were no comments there. I just put a single drop of blood as the icon. And what you're going to see is this piece of paper right here. Okay, you're going to see this. This is the post that we're looking for. And as of that post, you're going to see that only one of the sigils on this piece of paper has been filled in. And so let's talk about what we're doing here with this piece of paper. Okay. So when I began this journey working with the Goetia tarot cards, this is the Goetia tarot card deck. You've probably seen these before. Again, I got this off of Alibaba for like $2. You can buy it in all sorts of different versions, many more expensive versions, right, for nicer quality cards and everything. I would suggest, if you can, get those ones. These are great, though. It doesn't matter how much you spend on them or where you get them. As long as you put your feelings and emotions into them, they're going to work for you, okay? One of the things that I wanted to do when I started this journey was make it long term. I didn't want this to just be something short. I've told you before that this is a 7-year art project. And again, we're about 3.5 years in. And so one of the ways that I knew that I could make this journey last, extend it, was again by taking my time. That's why I pull 2 tarot cards per month. One on the full moon. I pull from a tarot card deck called the Magnolia deck. And again, that's more about what I'm experiencing that month. It's more a reflection of what I'm going through at the time. But on the new moon, again, I pull from the Goetia tarot card deck, the deck of demons, right? And I pull that one card each month, and then I spend the month communing with the demon on the card that I pulled. Victor, what does that mean? What do you mean you commune with the demon all month long? It's not anything scary. It's simple. First, it starts with a little bit of research. I research the demon from the card. What do they represent? Again, what is the human characteristic that demon represents? What abilities do they have? What insight can they offer us? And I work with them for the month. I allow them to show me things and provide answers and guidance throughout the month, right? And it's been amazing, the things that I've learned. And I'm going to share all of those with you as we go through the series. And we're just getting started, folks. I know we're deep in, right? This is what, episode 11? Things are going to really start cooking soon, okay? And it really starts with this one. So what I did is I took the 72 sigils of the demons that are found in this tarot card deck, and I printed them out on this sheet of paper, right? I think I found this on the internet. It was already, someone already had made this up, so I just printed it off, almost like a bingo card. And every month, when I get done communing with that demon, when I end the month after spending the month learning from them, accepting the gifts that they have to give, and sharing with all of you through my art on Instagram, sharing with you what I've learned, right? Promoting them just like I promised I would do. I told you at the beginning of this, I promised these spirits, if you show me your power, I will promote you. That's the deal that we made. That's why I'm making this podcast right now. They've shown me their power. They've changed my life. I could walk away right now. But I have a feeling if I did that, things would fall apart very quickly. I think that's kind of how this works. You got to live up to your end of the deal, folks, right? And so what I do is, again, at the end of the month, I give my offering to the demon. I give my blood to them. 1 drop, that's all it takes. And it's not through violence and it's not through pain, right? Again, we've talked about that. We do not release our pain through cutting. We do not hide our pain through drinking and drugs. No, we harness it and we focus it. And at the end of those rituals, when you're done focusing your energy and getting your emotions out and you feel exhausted, you give that 1 drop of blood. And here's how we do it, okay? We don't use razors. We don't use knives. We don't use anything that's going to hurt us in any type of way where it's a long-term hurt, okay? Instead, we start with something that has meaning to us. And again, this is my father's bayonet. This is the bayonet that he took with him to Vietnam, okay? Again, like I talked about, when I would research magical ceremonies and rituals, they always had some type of knife, a dagger, or right, whatever it may be. And so that's what I chose my father's bayonet, okay? So during those practices, I will take out the bayonet and I will ceremoniously and in representation, because that's what our ceremonies are, that's what our rituals are, they are representations of these things. Again, the Christians, right? They get to represent eating flesh and drinking blood. So for us, at least for me, you don't have to do any of these things. You do not have to do this. This is just what I do. You can come up with your own, practice, right? But what I do is I take the knife and, again, ritualistically representing that I'm cutting my middle finger on my left hand, okay? Again, a magical kind of dark magic that I have seen other people doing, cutting the middle finger on their left hand. And some of you conspiracy theorists out there, you're going to know who I'm talking about, who did this kind of stuff, right? Now, that finger's not bleeding, okay? I didn't cut myself. This thing's dull. It's super dull, right? It's for ceremonial. It's for representation. So how do I get the blood out? How do I actually pierce my skin? I knew that I had to do this in a way that, again, I could share with all of you, that I wouldn't feel like it was going to be something that would harm you. So I thought, how do I do this medically? How do I do this in a medical way? And I found what are called lancets, okay? These are small little pieces of plastic, and at the end of them is a tiny, tiny gauge needle, like the smallest needle I've ever seen. Super thin, you can barely see it, right? And these little medical devices are used to prick your finger when you're checking your glucose levels if you have diabetes, right? I think that's kind of what these are for, or any other type of at-home blood testing thing that you need to do, right? And so I will take this lancet, and again, I'm doing all of this after listening to the Gateway tapes. The mushrooms are flowing. I'm listening to the hypnotic music. I'm in my state of somnambulance. Sometimes it can be difficult to do because the left hand and the right hand don't always want to work together when you're doing this. The room might be vibrating. Your hands might be moving when they really aren't, right? It can be at times difficult. But I simply take the lancet, as I'm going to do now, because during the last ritual that I did, I was at the Mind War Manor, and I did not have this sheet of paper with me. This is the first time in almost 2.5 years that I didn't do this exactly on the same day, but I'm taking advantage of that now to do it here in front of all of you. I'm already sweating, right? This doesn't hurt, but you're still going to be drawing blood from yourself. You're still going to be changing yourself in a way, right? And so there is power in it. And that's the beauty. And we'll talk about why I do it this way in future episodes. But I took back some power when I created this system. Okay, I took back some power from my healthcare in a way. And we'll talk about that. But what we do here is we look on the sheet of the 72 demon sigils, and we find the sigil of the demon that we worked with last month, which for me was Person, the 20th demon of the Goetia. We simply prick our finger with the lancet. There is a little blood on the tip of my left finger now, and I'm going to simply place it on the sigil for Person. Thank him for the knowledge that he provided me during the month. This last month was amazing. It was full of love and relationships and growth. It was beautiful. And now, as you see here, we have filled in another sigil on our sheet here. What you're looking at on this sheet is, again, each one of these represents a different month. We have over 2 years. Over 2 years worth of work has gone into this single sheet of paper. To me, it's artistic. This is a piece of art that I hope to hold on to for the rest of my life. Because when I'm done with this project, this is going to get framed and hung on the wall. It's going to show my commitment to my craft. It has meaning to me. And someday, when you come up with your own rituals and your own ceremonies, you're going to create things like this that are going to have meaning to you as well. It's exciting to share this stuff with you because I haven't really told anybody about this, right? You may have seen this on my Instagram month after month as I've been filling in each of these sigils. But you just saw it here in real time. Now, again, I'm not doing a ritual right now. I'm not doing a ceremony. So it was kind of instructional in a way. But again, I think that's why I forgot this sheet, because I knew that I, at some point, was going to have to share this with all of you. And now was the perfect time. That little sheet of paper, again, has a lot of meaning to me. And that was, again, a post on Instagram, the one that we're working with today. That was the earliest adaptation of this piece of paper. That was the very first time that I drew blood and placed it on a sigil here. And it's really cool that almost 2 years, 2.5, gosh, almost 3 years now, I'm still at it. That means a lot, man. When you stick with something like this, I don't have to be doing any of this. I don't have to put the time into this, into the effort, over and over and over again, doing these ceremonies, doing these rituals, and then coming down here and making this podcast for all of you. I don't have to be doing any of these things, but I do it because I asked them to share with me their power. I asked them to take what was hidden in a cult and shine some light on it and show me some truth. Show me some experience when it comes to spirituality. Prove it to me that it's real. And they've done so tenfold. And that's why I sometimes nervously, because I do get a little nervous before I come down here. I'm a very shy person. But even through the jitters, even through the nerves, I am so excited to come down here every week and share this with you. And share with you work with demons like Prusan, right? Most people would think, man, you're working with demons. It's got to be scary. It must have been awful. Did you have a frightening week? No, beautiful month filled with love, connection, sunshine, so much good food, exercise, fresh air. It was beautiful, right? Nothing scary here. The harder times were those early years. I had to get through them. When I look at that picture and see that first drop of blood, that was a tough time. But man, we made it. We pushed through all of that, and we are here today on what I believe is episode 11 of the Mind War series on magic. I appreciate you being here. And as always, remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.